We are absolutely not ever going to be able to eradicate COVID-19. And the reason for that has to do in part with the definition of eradication, which a lot of people get wrong. So in general, eradication means that there are no cases of the disease anywhere in the world. And often the goal, at least on national level, is elimination, which means that there is no endemic transmission of the disease. You can have cases and still have the disease be eliminated, but they all have to be imported in. Because SARS-CoV-2 is a zoonotic pathogen, it comes to us from animals, it will continuously be reintroduced into the population, which means that we will not be able to stop vaccinating for it. It may get to a point where we are able to eliminate it, where the incidence is negligible or even zero if vaccination uptake gets high enough. But I don't see any reasonable point in the future where we can totally stop, unless maybe if we somehow perfect a super ultra broad spectrum universal coronavirus vaccine. In that circumstance, maybe, but that seems doubtful.
So we're going to be vaccinating for COVID for years to come.
At least a generation or two.
Probably forever.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. Wow. All right.
Welcome to your new reality.
Seriously. I noticed you had a link to an article on your website about how pandemics are going to continue to be a problem for humanity. Why is this some new reality? Like, we haven't really had a serious pandemic like this since, 100 years ago.
Yep.
What was the last one?
The Spanish flu of 1819. But
1918.
Sorry. My dyslexia is fucking up again. There was also a pandemic in 1820s, but that's different pandemic.
So is this something we have to worry about every 100 years?
Seems like
why
it.
Is this a problem, and why can't we anticipate these things or identify? Why couldn't we find SARS-CoV-2 before it spread in the human population? Where are these things coming from, and why do we have to expect that they're going to continue to show up?
Well, I mean, we did find SARS-CoV-2 before it spread. The problem was we just stopped doing it.
No, I mean before it even spread, in China. I'm talking why didn't we know about it 10 years ago if it existed in the animal population?
I'm not sure it existed 10 years ago, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know if it would have existed 10 years ago. I don't know quite enough about the rate at which coronavirus has evolved to know that. But a big issue is, in part, it's driven by climate change. In part, it's driven by industrialization. We're encroaching on certain wildlife habitats, and these animals are often reservoirs for various pathogens. Bats are extraordinarily good reservoirs for a lot of viruses because they can be infected by many viruses without actually getting sick because their immune system has some special quirks. But as we continue to encroach on wildlife habitats, as climate change worsens and forces these animals out of their natural habitat, as we continue to have these kinds of encounters, as we have factory farming, that kind of thing, we're going to see more of these.
Makes sense.
SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, it might not be the big one.
Oof. I've heard people talk about it as being actually a good training virus in the sense that it's not as deadly as some viruses like Ebola, for example, but it spreads really well. So that forces us to have to develop systems to deal with it and not just put our heads in the sand like some people want to do. Wow. What could we do better? What are we learning from this pandemic? What are we going to have to change to be able to, next time something like this comes around, not have it spread as fast or be as bad as COVID ended up being? One
thing that would have been tremendously useful was to have ready a broad spectrum antiviral that worked against coronaviruses. And the major reason we didn't have that is because no one really wanted to fund basic science research into coronaviruses. So I think that there needs to be a massive infusion of cash, basically, into the sector, into the science sector, in particular, emphasizing basic science research, not just the clinical side of things, like the clinical trials. I think that would be a really good starting point. I think that we need to better support our public health infrastructure. Public health is a really tricky thing because when you're doing the best job possible, it doesn't look like anything, right? Because nothing's happening.
Yes.
Right. So I hope that this renews a kind of interest and faith in public health and how important it is in our society. I think that would be an excellent starting point. I think that more detailed commentary is probably outside of my expertise.
Fair enough. It's sad to say, but I think that probably the thing that's going to maybe make people take this more seriously in terms of preparing for the future is the economic effects that it had. Had it not had a huge economic effect on the world, I think people would be able to come up with stories that we heard that, you know what, people
Maybe it
die.
wasn't so bad. Yeah.
People die, you know, and the people that are dying are old people, and they only had a few years left anyway. So the total number of years being removed by this virus is negligible. It's not worse than the flu. You know, all these other things that we're hearing. People are so good.
Though, I have to say, the comment about like they were old, so like they didn't have that many years anyway. I find that to be so hypocritical, because that's what they say when they die of COVID-19. Then you have this thing in Norway where no definitive links to the vaccine, just a temporal association. Oh my God, the vaccine is poison. It's killing all our old people. Like, when have you ever really shown that you cared about the lives of these elderly people?
Right.
Because it wasn't through your actions.
Fair enough. But it does seem that people are really able to come up with good stories to avoid dealing with the suffering and the death of people around them, so that it doesn't force them to have to change their behavior because they think that it's not going to happen to them. And that's part of what contributes to something like this spreading as fast as it did. Yeah. But I think that when it comes to the economic effects, people in power generally want to avoid that kind of economic shutdown. There becomes a big incentive in the marketplace to avoid these kinds of things. And hopefully that's going to inspire governments to take note, to actually keep their pandemic response teams employed, even if we haven't had a pandemic for a while, and hopefully to fund more of the basic science. I think that you're absolutely right about that, you know, the more we can understand about the basic science, the more quickly we'll be able to respond to whatever new viruses or I don't know, what else do we have to worry about? Bacteria, microphages. What?
Yeah, bacteria. We also fungi. Actually, there have been in ICU some outbreaks of Candida auris after patients get COVID-19, and that is a really nasty fungus. It has resistance to like everything. That's also actually another really big problem, antimicrobial resistance. We desperately need more new classes of antibiotics, and we need better antibiotic stewardship.
Yes. Do you know the channel Kurzgesagt on YouTube?
Yes.
Oh my God. Phenomenal animation channel that covers topics like this with this beautiful kind of like children-like animation, but serious topics like macrophages and how bacteria are becoming immune and they're going to take over the world. And they're done so well. And I really can't recommend them enough for people who, you know, want to get a really quick understanding of why bacterial resistance to antibiotics is a huge problem that we need to face down in the future. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully people are incentivized better today than we were a year ago.
Thanks for checking out this clip from our show.
To watch more clips or full episodes, click on our profile below.
If you want to stay up to date on all of our new episodes and videos, click subscribe.
And if you have any ideas for future guests or topics that you would like to see us cover on the show,
leave us a message in the comments or connect with us on any of our social media channels at Funtime Program
or on our website at funtimeprogram.com.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.